What if I told you that just hours before Formula One's most iconic race, Lewis Hamilton didn't just make headlines, he exposed a crack in Ferrari's foundation? In a moment no one expected, Hamilton broke his silence. And what he revealed could change the trajectory of Ferrari's entire season. Today, we're diving into the firestorm that's engulfed Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton after a controversial qualifying session in Monaco led to a penalty, a fallout, and a public message that has the entire paddock talking. If you're not already subscribed, now's the time, because this story is just the beginning. It happened in Q1 at Monaco, a session where milliseconds can define legacies. Max Verstappen was on a flying lap, barreling through Massenet, fully committed when suddenly ahead of him, Lewis Hamilton, easing back onto the racing line. No contact, no crash. But the moment was enough. Verstappen's lap was ruined, and the stewards immediately launched an investigation. But what they uncovered? That's where things escalated. Digging into the radio transcripts, it became clear. Hamilton was fed contradictory information. First, he was told, Max is pushing. So, Hamilton backed off and moved over. Then came the update, Max has slowed. Trusting his engineer, Hamilton rejoined the racing line, just as Verstappen came flying down. The incident forced Max to abort the lap, and that was all it took for the FIA to act. Yet what followed wasn't just a routine penalty, it was a devastating blow to Ferrari's weekend, and a rare public rebuke from Hamilton himself. Stick around, because what he said next might be the most pointed statement of his Ferrari career. The investigation was thorough. GPS overlays, onboard footage, telemetry traces, and most importantly, team radio. The verdict? Hamilton had indeed impeded Verstappen. And even though Ferrari owned up to giving him the wrong call, the stewards were unmoved. Miscommunication, they said, isn't a valid excuse. The result? A crushing three-place grid drop. Hamilton, who had qualified an impressive P4, was pushed back to P7, at Monaco of all places. A track where passing is nearly impossible. Let that sink in. One team miscue cost Lewis not just a strong starting position, but potentially a shot at the podium. As we turn our eyes to the next round of the championship, the focus isn't just on lap times, tire compounds, or new aerodynamic packages. It's on the people, the process, the trust. Because Formula One teams don't collapse all at once. They erode, one misstep at a time, one internal disconnect at a time, one broken radio call at a time. And right now, Ferrari stands at a crossroads. They've come so far. Under Frédéric Vasseur's leadership, the culture has begun to shift. The mood has changed, the car has shown flashes of brilliance. And in Charles Leclerc, they have a homegrown talent who's proving week after week that he can fight with the best. But that's not enough. Not when you have Lewis Hamilton on your roster. Not when you've made the biggest signing of the decade. Not when the entire motorsport world is watching your every move. Because Hamilton doesn't just demand greatness, he elevates the standard. And if Ferrari can't rise to meet it, the cost won't just be a lost season. It'll be a lost opportunity, one they may never get again. We've seen what happens when trust breaks down at Ferrari. We've seen it with Alonso, with Vettel, even with Leclerc in his earlier seasons. It starts small. A missed call here, a botched pit stop there. But over time, the narrative builds. The doubts grow, the frustration simmers. And before long, the brightest lights in the sport begin to dim under the weight of what could have been. Ferrari cannot afford to let that happen again. Not now, not with Lewis. In Formula One, it's not just the on-track pace that determines success. It's the decisions made in silence, in the chaos of the pit wall, in the conversations between driver and engineer, in the milliseconds of strategy that separate glory from heartbreak. Ferrari has the tools, the resources, the speed. But the real question isn't how fast can they go? Can they finally stop getting in their own way? If you're finding these insights valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. We unpack the stories that the race results don't tell you. But here's where it gets really interesting. After the stewards' decision, Hamilton didn't just move on. He spoke, and not in vague, diplomatic tones. In a calm but unmistakably sharp statement, Hamilton said, "I was completely offline, and they told me Max was slowing. Then they said he wasn't. It changed, I accelerated, and suddenly Max was there. It's not on me. 4 words. It's not on me. That sentence was more than just self-defense. It was a warning shot. Without naming names, he publicly called out Ferrari's internal communication failure. And by doing so, he put his own race engineer, Riccardo Adami, squarely in the spotlight. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment reaction. This was deliberate. Hamilton was sending a message, not just to Ferrari, but to everyone watching. If Ferrari wants to compete at the top, they can't afford these mistakes. The timing couldn't be more significant, because what happened next in the race proved Hamilton's point in brutal fashion. Hamilton started P7 instead of P4. And as any F1 fan knows, at Monaco, that's the difference between fighting for a podium and fighting for damage control. Despite the new FIA-mandated 2-stop rule, track position was still king. And even though Hamilton drove with surgical precision, managing his tires, staying out of trouble, and executing his race plan, he could only recover 1 place. He finished P6. Had he started in 4th, he would have been behind Norris and Leclerc, with a genuine shot at undercutting one of them, especially given Ferrari's strong long-run pace this weekend. It's not hard to imagine Hamilton walking away with P2. Instead, he left with frustration and a team under fire. Love this level of race analysis? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the deeper stories from the world of Formula One. We go beyond the podiums. The bigger question. Now, what does this really say about Ferrari? Because this wasn't just a simple mistake. It wasn't a routine blunder chalked up to driver error or a misread on tire wear. No, this was something far more troubling. This was a system's failure, and when a system fails, the damage goes beyond the stopwatch. It fractures trust, weakens foundations, and echoes louder than any crash or controversy. And when that failure involves a 7-time world champion, someone who chose Ferrari not for a paycheck or a farewell tour, but to rewrite history, it becomes so much more than just a strategy slip-up. This wasn't a miscommunication. It was a misalignment of vision. Lewis Hamilton, never one to throw blame carelessly, delivered the most piercing verdict of all with a single sentence. We need to trust the people around us to give us the right information when it matters. If that breaks down, everything else does too. No shouting, no finger-pointing, no heat-of-the-moment frustration. It wasn't rage, it wasn't deflection, it was worse. It was disappointment. And that lands harder than any angry radio outburst, because underneath that calm, deliberate tone is something far more alarming. A crack forming beneath the surface. A sign that even with all the momentum, all the positivity, and all the talk of Ferrari's new era, the same old ghosts are still whispering in the walls of Maranello. The past wasn't erased, it was just hiding. And now it's starting to show itself again. Because this isn't the first time we've seen Ferrari stumble in the margins. They've had the car, they've had the talent, they've even had the leadership. But what they haven't had, consistently, is cohesion, precision, unity of purpose. The kind of unity that wins championships. And if they can't build that, if they can't deliver it for Hamilton, who arrived with the expectation not just of competing, but of conquering, then the stakes are even greater than just losing races. They risk losing trust. They risk losing him. Hamilton's real message. Because make no mistake, Lewis Hamilton didn't just drive in Monaco. He spoke, not with press releases or pointed words, but with his presence, his demeanor, his professionalism, his frustration. He delivered a message on Sunday, and it was aimed at 3 very different audiences. First, to Ferrari. The time for excuses is over. This is not a project in its early stages. This is not a rookie team figuring things out. This is Ferrari. With over a year to prepare for Hamilton's arrival, with some of the brightest minds in F1, with a driver who's seen and done more than most could dream of, there is no more runway for learning from mistakes. The time to execute is now. Second, to the paddock. He's not just here to race, he's here to lead. For all the questions about why Lewis would make this move, for all the pundits who said he was chasing legacy at the expense of results, Monaco showed us something different. He didn't come to Ferrari to cruise to retirement. He came to change the culture, to demand better, to hold his team accountable in a way only someone like him can. And third, to the fans. This is only the beginning. This is not the story of a fading legend making one last desperate grab for glory. This is a new chapter, one with fire, with fight, and with a long road still ahead. The battle at Ferrari isn't just on the stopwatch. It's in the garage, in the strategy room, in the moments that define whether a team believes in itself or continues to unravel. Comments below. And once you're done, don't forget to click on the video that's popping up on your screen right now. And don't forget to subscribe my channel.